as these teams are going to be getting ready here. And the winner, of course, is going to be going up against Sheesh tomorrow. And will have to fight their way through the lower bracket as well on our championship Sunday. So let's see what these teams got. Evolving, Pieces, Donkeys. They're ready to go here as Halls of Atonement gets underway.
Evolving is going to be running that Destro lock that we saw from yesterday that it eclipsed the 200k DPS mark. I guess I assume that they're going to continue to run that. I'm interested to see if what Pieces Donkeys is going to do with their composition in Halls of Atonement, right, Dratnos?
Yeah, let's take a look here. We can... Oh my goodness gracious!
Is this legal? Is this legal?
This... They have assembled the combination of the 3 mages.
I hate this game.
I am just delighted by this turn of events. We have the Fire Mage, we have the Frost Mage, and we have the Arcane Mage. And by their powers combined, they should be able to deal ungodly amounts of damage is the plan here for Pieces Donkeys. But unfortunately, they have lost their Arcanus Magus rapidly in the start of this pull. That is bad news for them. Of course, Arcane, the squishiest of the mage specs, doesn't have double block like Frost, doesn't have Cauterize like Fire, and so is most susceptible to being eliminated.
Yo, look at... I think Shelly just ripped Threat off the Shard of Alpheus, eclipsing 200k DPS here. Look at him, he's just popping off. He got power infused too. So his group, big fans of this Destro Warlock, as he's just pumping insane amounts of damage. All the Spitefuls were running at him, and it looks like Evolving are going to be able to deal with this first pull that was twice the size that we saw from that of Pieces, Dratnos.
Yeah, this is, wow. This has been a huge first pull from Evolving. Their 1 Warlock is worth 3 mages is clearly the map here. the age-old question in World of Warcraft, you know, are mages or Warlocks better? Well, Shella is putting up an incredible result there for the Warlock. And also, wow, look at Soda. Look at the damage Soda was able to put out on that Necrolord Shadow Priest while donating his power infusion as well. Still a solid 27,000 DPS across that long pull. Not a shabby outcome either. I think this comp from Evolving has so much good stuff going for it. You know, look at the way they've got Chaos Brand as well to supplement all this magic damage, whereas on Pieces' side, instead they're opting for that tankier Guardian Druid, but not bringing quite as much in the damage department.
Oh, the Guardian Druid from Pieces Donkeys has died. Myth, look at him laughing. Laughing at what he has done. Clearly there was a mistake with whether it be Necrotic or trying to tank those enraged bears.
I think you misspoke there. It's actually called a Mythic.
Yes, Evolving now DPSing down their second Shard of Halkias, or the third Shard of Halkias, rather. They are mind controlling one of those loyal Stoneborns to be able to deal with that. And they're also watching out for all the Spiteful. They're looking like they're eyeballing Incinerator Arcalet that they do grab that mob. Don't want to be playing that with Lord Chamberlain at all.
Yeah, that aura, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the MDI that's something that we see a team experiment with, but it is sketchy. And I don't think it's something we will see on a 22 tyrannical level. But you know what? If we get away in here where we can have this dungeon at 19 fortified, I think this might be a dungeon where the 4 Tormented Aura dream could come true.
I think that General Call probably has the highest chance because
Maybe,
that boss lasts.
That boss is just
20...
dies so fast, yeah.
Yeah.
But we already have that one on 19 fortified, right? That is literally the combo active this week in the MDI in that dungeon. Maybe we'll see that. That's our very next dungeon after this one as well. So maybe we'll even see that there.
Yeah. Pieces Donkeys is now dealing with another Shard of Halkias. They're taking their pulls substantially slower from that of Evolving. Evolving, even though they're not running with that Guardian Druid, they are pulling bear pulls, is what they're called in the industry, where there's these absolutely massive pulls that just have to get burned down within a few seconds. And so now you see, look at this again, Evolving, retooling, Alex grabbing all of this trash. He does have access to his Kyrian file if he needs a nice necrotic reset, but this is really dangerous from that. He needs to make sure that he is kiting, or not kiting these mobs, but he's able to tank these mobs. He preemptively pops all of his mitigation, gets inside of that meta. Ooh, a nice AoE stun coming out of that Warlock, getting Shelly, making sure all those mobs give Alex a little bit of reprieve, and now he gets a necrotic reset. He's starting to get stacked back up again, though.
Oh, their healer taking one of those slams, but a beautiful play there. The bubble's going to come out to protect him. You blink and you miss it, but he actually cast a bop on the tank there that was immediately canceled as well to remove those stacks. And somehow Alex has found a way here to just drop stacks again by kiting. Incredible, incredible management of the necrotic affix coming out here from Evolving. Normally a pull of this size would just be so deadly, especially if you have to actually stay in and generate threat, which if Shella is in your group, you do have to do as a tank. That is absolutely required, or else you're going to get yelled at. You're going to have a dead Warlock mad at you about it. So, yeah, I mean, just beautifully played by all 5 members of Evolving so far in this key. This has been a phenomenal, phenomenal performance. And look at the count that they've already established while also getting so low on this first boss. Meanwhile, over on Pieces Donkeys, they haven't been pulling small by any means.
Your end card is gone, bro.
So much danger.
Run it. Oh, he takes down the necrotic dot, and now he's yelling about something about his death. And it looks like Pieces Donkeys may be wiping. Myth looking over at his other monitor, maybe changing the song to something a little bit faster paced. As he's trying to run back into the back, now he's laughing.
That's the thing about your song choice when you're playing Guardian Druid. You need to set an appropriate beats per minute so that you can press one thrash every beat, right? And that is very much the bear rotation in cooldowns, just smashing that thrash button for the duration of Incarn. Not going to be available though for another couple minutes here, and Myth is really he's really built into that as much as possible. He's actually using that Polar that drops from the 9 in Raid, Jotun Destiny's Fall, which is another 3-minute cooldown on use that gives you a boatload of secondary stats for 30 seconds. So in that 30 seconds of every 3 minutes, while he has that up and while he's in Incarn, he's both unkillable and deals solid damage. But then there are 2.5 minutes that are a lot more challenging to manage, that are between each of those awesome moments.
Yeah. But unfortunately enough for Pieces Donkeys, Evolving already starting on the second boss here, looking like they are getting an insurmountable lead at 80% enemy forces count. Echelon has been engaged for the side of Evolving. They are grabbing the boss, and they are committing... It doesn't even look like they're using that many offensive CDs on this fight. Even though it is tyrannical, I suspect that they are going to have some of them coming up. But it looks like they are just committing some of the Frost Mage cooldowns, which Frost Mage's cooldowns at least are pretty decent, but they're not the most important thing. It looks like that Warlock, or not the Warlock, the Shadow Priest also had his PI and Border Eruption available too.
Yeah, this boss is actually one of the... In this dungeon, I think this is the boss I'm most terrified of on Tyrannical Echelon here. There's just so much kind of that you can start falling behind, and each of these ad waves start spawning, they start pelting your group. So very much a scary one that is nice to have a lot of cooldowns available for, but in an MDI setting, you don't get to have Bloodlust for this boss, right? You need Bloodlust at the start of the dungeon and at the end of the dungeon, or else you're missing a use, and that means you don't get to use it on this boss. And of course, there are scarier things than a single solitary boss in these pulls that Evolving has put together.
Oh, just wait. We're about to see the boss after this is not going to be done by itself.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with the Tormented mini-boss that is also in the Antechamber.
They play that solo. Yeah, they play that solo.
That is usually the maneuver.
Oh, 5% health. Okay, fine.
Oh
One
my
heal.
goodness.
He pops his survival instincts and runs away from these mobs. Myth kiting it out like it's a weekly key. Full mouth laughing.
Yeah.
Full mouth laughing.
Just having a good time. Oh no, they've lost a mage down. That was their fire mage who ended up going down on that one. Brutal turn of events there for Pieces Donkeys, but you can see they're having a really good time in this dungeon. This comp is actually just so cool, the triple mage. I wasn't sure if we were going to see it in this tournament, but I love it so much. The one of each spec, the variety pack.
As a balanced druid player, I feel very, very angered by seeing 3 mage specs before I see 1 Moonkin.
Well, we already saw Moonkin yesterday.
Oh, true. Pieces Donkeys played Moonkin yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, Pieces Donkeys just they're playing whatever their hearts desire. That's the joy of this team, and you can't help but root for them. But I don't think it's going to help them in this dungeon. You can see
they're going to need a lot more. They're getting a lot more rooting right now.
Evolving are going to be killing their second boss just as Pieces Donkeys are pulling their first. That is the kind of lead that does not get overtaken very easily, especially in a dungeon as short as Halls of Atonement. You know, Evolving just have effectively 2 mini-bosses, 2 bosses, and some trash that joins that party left in their run.
Yeah. So yeah, look at this now. Executioner Varuth being pulled solo. They dropped the Ashen Hollow on this. I think it's just due to where you want the Ashen Hollow to come up on Lord Chamberlain, or maybe it's maybe it's Cigar that you would use it on. The pull after this would certainly be the Ashen Hollow if you're looking for overall DPS. However, you do see the healer from Evolving sitting at a nice balmy 10.5k DPS, carrying his team to victory while also healing them for a solid 6.5k HPS.
Similarly, over on Thesis' side, Callie there is currently in 3rd place, like a solid minute into this boss fight, competing with all 3 of those mages on the damage meters as Paladin damage with that Ashen Hallow, just so actually climbing back up into 2nd now, re-ramping as the 2nd minute of the boss fight begins. Wow.
Mages in shambles.
Yeah, mages are just getting demolished here by paladins on the meters on both teams. All right, here we go for Evolving, though. This is the big pull to capstone the dungeon as they go into the 3rd boss with 9 other enemies and perhaps a Loyal Stoneborn as well. Yeah, Loyal Stoneborn that is on their side to help things out a little bit.
Yeah, so they capture one of the Loyal Stoneborns here. They're going to save one of the other Loyal Stoneborn for later because you are able to snap it into the Cigar Room and you're able to control it there. And from there, you're able to one-phase that boss without killing any of those little ads that are on the pew area. And without the Stoneborn, it gets a little bit dicey. But if you do wait out the time that it takes to evade, then you're able to control it and get it pulled and kill off the mini-boss with it fairly quickly.
Oh, man, there's so much big hits of damage, though, during this pull that, you know, if any 2 of them go off, it is basically going to cause player deaths. Evolving, though, doing a great job of preventing that from happening and healing people up very quickly when they do take damage. And that is going to mean that all of the trash has now been basically taken care of, except for this collector. So they CC'd this collector so that they wouldn't have to deal with it with the brunt of the other things. And they're actually, look at what they're doing here. They're letting that Collect Sins cast fully channel so that their Frost Mage can funnel more damage off of the little ads into the boss. That is a big piece of technology. When you're playing with a Frost Mage, the more targets they're hitting with their Frozen Orb and with their Blizzard, the more damage they will deal to their primary target. And those little ads, you know, they can be annoying. They can overwhelm you in a big pull. Your target cap specs can cleave onto them by accident. But in this group, it's just pure upside to have a bunch of little extra unimportant mobs once you're no longer in danger of dying, which Alex still is, but he gets the lay on hands to be preserved.
Easy. Yeah, it's like you said, you do see the mage from Evolving just sitting there blizzarding all of these mobs, launching frozen orbs on CD. Look at the frozen orb tracker on the far right-hand side on our Omni CD. It's just like every single tick there is just being reduced so fast, and he's just launching as many orbs out as he possibly can. And yeah, High Adjudicator Ali is going to be going down here momentarily. They're probably going to grab one of their final Loyal Stoneborn that they do need to help kill off Inquisitor Cigar. On the side of Pieces Donkeys on the right side of your screen, they've popped Lust and they've pulled Echelon, but this is kind of feeling a little bit too little too late, would you say?
You really don't hope to have Bloodlust available for Echelon. Yeah, that is an indicator that things have gone wrong, but firing it off when you do get here, you know, I think that is a good adaptation. I think this is probably the best Lust you're going to get at this. I mean, a nice Lust on this boss, shave a lot of time off of it. I think pretty good call. Yeah, they're certainly going to need a lot of help, though. They're going to need Evolving to have multiple wipes at this point, I think, to catch back up, because Evolving are on Cigar, the last mini-boss of the dungeon, before they get to that last boss. They have successfully mind-controlled the Gargoyle, something that we've seen a couple teams actually have go wrong and have to just fight the Gargoyle.
It was
instead.
Evolving that had the
it
issue.
was in fact Evolving last time, yeah, who cast the mind control into while it was evading, and so weren't able to take the Gargoyle for their team. This time around, though, they've got that all sorted out, and it will help them deal some damage. A little known fact as well is while you have a Gargoyle on your side, you also get a 10% damage reduction, which can be really nice on this last boss while it's affected by all those tormented auras.
Yeah, it's mostly valuable for the tank damage, Lord Chamberlain does an insane amount of tank damage just because of that dot that he puts onto the tank. Outside of that, he does do the telekinesis lines on 33 and 66 and 33% intervals. But, like, you have major defensives, and you also have a Warlock in your group. There's a lot of things that none of your DPS. You also have multiple immunities. Nobody should be dying to this telekinesis circle. So the DR, it is very valuable for the tank.
Yeah, it is a nice little effect to have. Of course, you do only have it for the first couple seconds of the fight, but you know, we take it. Of course, there are 2 auras affecting the boss right now. It's the slow aura and the increased physical damage taken. Those are going to be the ones you'll see most commonly affecting last bosses, with maybe one of the other ones if teams are particularly ambitious, although probably not so much on 22 tyrannical settings.
What are we waiting for Lust for? Probably Ashen Hollow fight?
Yeah, Ashen Hallow. And Ashen Hallow is going to be synchronized with the Wings cooldown, basically, which you can see is almost ready. It's the farthest right icon below the Holy Paladin. And they get... Usually those two will be lined up pretty close every other Wings. And there, yeah, you can see the Time Warp is now going to be deployed, and very soon there's the Ashen Hallow, and the Wings, once it becomes available, will be popped as well. You don't need to line them all up perfectly, because all of the, Time Warp, Ashen Hallow, and Wings all have different durations, so you just need to make sure that all of the short duration ones are fully contained in the longer duration cooldowns, and then you're getting full value.
What did Evolving's Paladin just Dark Iron Dwarf ratio off?
I think that's just a Fireblood offensively. So Fireblood, it does remove debuffs, but it also gives you a buff, and it gives you a bigger buff if you remove debuffs, but even if you don't, it's still just a damage ratio.
Okay, I misunderstood how that damage ratio worked. I thought you had to remove something to get the effect from it. I didn't realize it just gave you intellect flat like that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it gives you an extra third of its effect for each effect removed, but it is primary stat either way. As we see Evolving eventually killing off that boss, 1622, not a bad timer out of them at all. They will be taking game 1 in this series against Pieces of Donkeys.
I'm really glad that Pieces Donkeys is having some fun with it, okay? Evolving, taking that win, and as you mentioned, it was, a 16-minute run or something like that, so it's faster than we've seen out of Evolving previously, so we're seeing that steady improvement, and, not to mention, we're just seeing that further refinement out of the run that they had right there, Sai.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Evolving, they had very similar movement throughout the dungeon as they did yesterday when they did holes, but like you said, they did it about 45 seconds or so quicker than yesterday's time. So they managed to make up some improvements just today in that practice, and now jumping into this game here between themselves and Pieces Donkeys, they managed to just find even a better execution.
That's right, and that's what has to happen over the course of tons and tons of practice that these teams have been putting into some of their best dungeons, and especially the more the teams are able to kind of figure out which of the dungeons they're going to win against, which ones are strongest at, and they can start metagaming and preparing a lot more as teams got better at that. It is something that they're able to double down on and improve upon. So Evolving with that win is going to be a one up over Pieces, and right there, it was pretty cool seeing Triple Mage. Unfortunately, no Moonkin's Tettles. It was pretty cool seeing Triple Mage, as we had talked about, seeing a lot of fire and frost this weekend.
Yeah, and it's... I do wonder if the Arcane Mage is actually a legitimately good pick. You do see here he was at a balmy 9k DPS on the meter. However, he did have some very major issues happen on the first pull of the dungeon, which may disproportionately bring that one down a little bit. But I do think that kind of shows why you would play Frost and Fire, because they were both well over 16k for Pieces Donkeys there. And while the Arcane Mage was at 9k, it would be very difficult for them to be bumped all the way up to that 16k mark.
Yeah, no question. Sai, what do you got for us on the analyst desk?
We should have a couple clips rolling for us to kind of talk through, but I think starting us off, that massive pull that Evolving were able to pull off here, and we saw it yesterday, peaking over 200k on the side of Scheller on that Destro lock, and does it once more, recreates it perfectly. They do have a few little danger moments where, you know, Alex gets low, but just the amount of damage that Scheller is able to pump out there is just phenomenal. And then we have Myth here on the side of Pieces Donkeys, just getting a little bit too overconfident with that necrotic stacking, hitting 68 stacks and just deciding to kite a little bit too late with the bleed from the Gargons on him as well. And there's just no way he's going to survive that. So those issues then cause the mobs to start running around, hitting other people in the group, and just prevents that nicely packed grouping for the rest of the team. And then we have Evolving here. Another nice, neat little move that we saw them pull off was keeping the Collector alive as they pulled all of this trash here into the High Adjudicator, and keeping the Collector there to cast that Collect Sins, adding those additional mobs in to help the rest of the DPS funnel some additional damage into the Adjudicator was just a really good way of optimizing the dungeon and allowing your composition to complement the dungeon, you know, and just really executing at the peak and just really extracting everything they can from their classes in this dungeon. So that's just showing Evolving really understanding how to play holes. But it was great to see that Pieces Donkeys, I mean, Myth was smiling the whole 16 minutes of that key. Like they seem to just go into it and just have a good time. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, with how far some of these teams get into the tournaments, they also see how far their practice stretches, and they say, well, our opponents are going to be a lot better prepared for us on this dungeon, so let's just make sure that we're at least going to be having fun with it. And Dratnos, that's going to push us into game number 2 here, which is going to be on the other side, which we've been seeing quite a bit of lately.
Is it? Oh, I thought this one was
I had
gonna
a
be
Sanguine
Depths. Yeah, but I could indeed be mistaken.
Oh, sorry, that's right. I'm already looking ahead, man. I'm already looking ahead at some of the other matches. We got Sanguine Depths, excuse me.
All right, yeah, so we have
did
the
see
other...
earlier at a Sonic's Imperative. There we go.
The other Venthyr Spiteful dungeon in our map pool here is Sanguine Depths here. Yeah, this one is just the exact opposite of Key Level and Tyrannical Fortified, right? We have Fortified and plus 19, so a much lower and faster key. And also in this dungeon, Spiteful is a speed increase. You're using it to fuel your Venthyr Lanterns and get even more of a damage buff in this place. So expect to see some very fast dungeons. Expect to see a last boss that just melts as quickly as possible with potentially 3 Tormented buffs on it as well. And in terms of composition, I have no idea what to expect. We've seen things running all across the available specs in this place so far. I'm curious to see if any teams have explored that Elemental Shaman that we've seen a couple others play in here, because I think this is a great dungeon for that spec.
I've heard rumors that Pieces Donkeys had not practiced Sanguine Depths before before yesterday. Well, I guess we're gonna see how that's gonna play out. Like they may have had time to, after matches yesterday, maybe even before today, they go in and
that was the
put
first
in
match they
substantial
played,
time.
though.
Yes, I know.
What?
Yes, I know.
What? Okay.
Oh, I just said it was rumors. I didn't confirm them. I didn't go in and look.
All right.
Maybe we see like another Guardian Druid triple mage thing, you know? Maybe they just pop it out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's possible at this point. You never know what Pieces Donkeys are going to be throwing at us right here. But, you know, I still think it's been crazy impressive watching Myth, who's been playing healer for a very long time, start playing a lot of tank. Especially tanking MDI as well and working with the team and having to handle dealing with 3 mages, man. That takes a lot of patience, a lot of work to be able to do there. So we'll see what they have in store.
Pull around me, Tank. Pull around me.
I know. There's a lot to manage for this guy, okay? But we've been already seeing a couple different variation settles between some of the pulls teams are going for. And as we mentioned, couple of different tormentors who have been skipped just because teams have kind of front-loaded a lot of trash so that once they hit that final jar, they can just grab some trash at the very end, bring it into boss, and like laser call down.
Yeah, exactly. Call as a boss has generally fairly low HP, and especially whenever you're committing all of your offensive cooldowns and you're committing a Bloodlust to it, that boss can die somewhere in the range of like 30 to 45 seconds if you do have everything available for you. And that is very conducive on this key level, on a 19 fortified, to allow you to pull 3 and potentially even 4 Tormentor mobs with that final boss. And that is going to be the biggest time save, I think, between the teams. How many of the Tormented mobs are they going to fight inside of the Sanguine Depths with General Call? Are they going to go for the more safe 2? Or are they going to go for the more ambitious 3? And I think that that's the biggest difference in what we've seen is 2 versus 3. We've seen nobody bust out 4, although I do think 4 is theoretically possible. It would be very daunting, and I would be incredibly surprised if any team was going to bust out 4 right here.
I kind of think that you could just find a way to have at least one of them used in a very efficient manner. That would probably be the biggest thing for me is like, can you do it? Sure, but should you do it, right? We've seen teams grab Incinerator with trash mobs and boss. We've seen the Javelin Custodian who's gotten dragged in with the Executioner. So there's just a bunch of different efficient ways to go about doing it that there's only so much more that you gain for some of these pulls because you just have some just uncapped AoE, massive cleave at your disposal to burn things down.
And I think it comes down to, I actually think that the Executioner Javeliner one that you referenced is the most efficient one because we saw groups grabbing their 10 stack of the Lantern buff and going straight into Crixus with all of those ticks, and that felt like that was the most efficient variant of that pull, and so you would have to skip Incinerator Arcaleth in the process.
Exactly.
And so I do think that the Executioner with the Javeliner is the more efficient pull. Maybe Sai and Dratnos disagree, though?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I would just mention as well, like, it could be really nice to get the volcanic plumage in this dungeon as well, because there's a lot of spell casting and things. So sometimes it can be like, hey, we're going to commit the 30 seconds to kill this, but we're also going to get the benefit for the whole rest of the key. So that can be good too. But I don't know where that mob is placed in the dungeon. But go on, yeah?
Wouldn't that be off the Incinerator?
No. Volcanic is off of Executioner, right?
Oh, it's off of Executioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the one right with
you're
the
having to
mini
give
boss.
up on. You have to give up on Champion's Brand, though, right?
Yeah, but Champion's Brand, you know.
Yeah.
It's a big damage. But the way I'm looking at it is like, because we're on that lower key level, yeah, you're going to be interrupting some of the rack souls. You're going to interrupt some throw researches and everything like that. But that's kind of just a healer job, don't you think? I mean, that's whatever I get assigned to is they say, okay, yeah, you just worry about it because we've seen so many times where teams are just able to obliterate it. And so if you think about it, when you're in Tarvald's ring, you're able to chain jar into jar into jar. Well, jar into jar. Actually, yeah, you can do 3.
Yeah.
Technically, you could be running through most of that trash already with a damage buff and a healing buff out there on your group.
On the other hand, Champion's Brand, it's not like that's ever active in any of your groups anyways, though, so, right? Trade off.
We got things to heal, all right? I'm booting. I got
trade
stuff
offer.
to do.
Just one heal, please, Jack.
You receive
I
no
beg.
healing.
I beg for one heal,
One
please.
heal, okay? They get just one heal. If they have 100 HP, they have 99 surplus, okay?
That is why Jack plays with the Moonkin almost exclusively, so he calls for Heart of the Wild healing.
I have no off healing anymore. I'm running Rogue, Windwalker, and Hunter, man. Everybody's on life
no
support
off-healing,
fighting
then
for their
lists
lives out there.
Well, I mean, it's nice, Teddles, when Boomkin can Heart of the Wild off heal because they've got 2 minutes 30 to spare every time they're outside of their cooldown, so they may as well be doing something.
That's right.
Feral speaking.
Hey,
Never
come join
Heart
me
of
on
the
the
Wild
bench.
off healed in his life. He's got too much damage to do. Yep. We're waiting on one more of the players, of course, to get ready, and then we'll be able to hop in and see what they have in store for us in the Sanguine Depths. And, when we start thinking about, like, the bracket and what's going to be next for these teams, the winner of this series, of course, is going to be going on to face up against Sheesh. And it's going to be a big test for whoever moves forward, of course, because it further tests the depth of skill for these players and how many of these 8 dungeons that they have practiced to put up the most competitive times possible. It's one of the big advantages we always talk about with Perplexed is when they win on day 1, they win on day 2, they're just free to be able to practice and prepare. So one of these teams is going to move on into the lower semis to Championship Sunday for tomorrow. Let's see who it's going to be as game number 2 between Evolving and Pieces Donkeys gets rolling.
All right, so now you have Evolving in Pieces Donkeys immediately starting to run towards the end of the hallway. It's very interesting to see how many packs groups grab and bring back into this first lantern. Dratnos, are you liking what you're seeing with the comps here?
Yeah, this is sweet. We got some nice ones in here. So we do have an elemental shaman represented. It's from Evolving, and yeah, this dungeon, one of my favorite ones to see that elemental shaman in. Meanwhile, Pieces Donkeys playing the Resto Shaman instead, and they have the double mage, but they have moved their arcane mage over to Venthyr Moonkin instead. What is Venthyr Moonkin like in this dungeon, Tuttles?
Normally, it depends, but it can be very annoying because then your group is like, oh, Tettles, please open up the lantern. And you're like, I would rather press my cooldowns right now. But they're like, you have to open the lantern. We can't do it without you. And then you just have to open the lantern.
If you press your Ravenous Frenzy, and you're the snipe.
Rage Onk.
No.
Rage Onk.
Yeah, that's the insta onk. Oh, no.
You saw nothing. Oh, please don't die again. Please don't die again. Oh, no.
Okay, here's my question for you though. If you have your Ravenous Frenzy going and can you click a lantern? No, right? If you do, you get stunned, right?
I think you can.
Okay.
You can.
Really?
You
Okay.
can. It doesn't have to be druid abilities that you're casting. You have to just be doing something.
Okay, so if you're in the middle of a channel, it won't stun you? I see.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
You can
nice.
even be
Wow, Evolving. They're doing this whole first pull onto boss with all those stacks of Venthyr Lantern and Incinerate
I love that.
Arbaleth as well. This is so
scary.
Look at Shella ascending here at 140,000 DPS, but their Elemental Shaman and Mage and Paladin are all also there at 70,000 DPS, including their healer, their Paladin. What on earth is happening here on my damage meter?
Rumor has it that Shelly operates best with just the light of his monitors gracing and cresting his face. His powers are just unfolding right before us.
He lights up the room enough just by himself.
Yeah, exactly. Look at that. He's doing at least 20% more damage than the remainder of his group, just showing them why he is the team captain.
Yeah, I mean, that was an absurd amount of DPS. As they finished this boss, their fourth best damage dealing was from a healer at 32,000 DPS. I mean, that is just a crazy, crazy number from Evolving, and they have gained so much time as a result of executing that. But look at Pieces Donkeys. They are not far behind either. They have Crixus at a third of its health, and they have a little bit of extra count. But they do have that one death on the board. Not a big deal, though. It only cost them those 5 seconds. And the Ankh, and their Moonkin has gone down as well here. They do have a Battle Res available, but their Moonkin was their Battle Res caster. Now they're trying to soak this charge, but with a player down, that's going to deal increasing damage, and things are starting to go a little bit sideways here for Pieces Donkeys.
Yeah, now Evolving, continuing on, making their way through the dungeon. They do have this Chamber Sentinel with this Overseer, which is not mobs that you commonly see pull together. However, with the way that Evolving was grouping up a bunch of these mobs, it makes it so a pull like this is really not that bad. They were pulling the Chamber Sentinel and all of those mobs back into this room and were able to get everything grouped up relatively quickly. Now you see Alex here looking to grab those Sprites, which are those Imp-style mobs, and I wonder where they're going to take them to. I wonder if they're going to activate the Lantern, or I wonder if they're going to just use the Acolytes to buff up their Lantern. It's going to be interesting to see where they're going to look to use that, but they are gathering up right around this Lantern here. And yeah, look at that. Their Mage is activating that Lantern as he is playing that Frost. And Venthyr, pretty good for Frost. They're getting all of those Sprites in, and once they do end up killing those off, they will gain 10 stacks of that Lantern buff pretty quickly, which is a 50% damage gain.
Yeah, it's actually interesting here. We do have two different covenants between the two Frost mages. Venthyr, that kind of traditional Frost, single target raid covenant on the side of Evolving. Whereas Pieces are sticking with that Night Fae, which is also very good, especially in an AoE circumstance. I think it might just be a case of like, okay, we want our mage to be opening the lanterns, right? Because we don't want our paladin, who needs to potentially be healing, to be obligated to do so. Whereas on the side of Pieces Donkeys, you've got the Moonkin, who's also Venthyr, and so you can just have them open it while they're out of their cooldowns. And literally, you would never miss a Moonkin out of their cooldowns. Like if they're casting, if they're not casting, there's literally no way to tell. You won't see them on the damage meter, so it may as well have them open the lanterns.
Interestingly enough, it looks like Pieces Donkey's Moonkin is running that staff from Tectis, I think, with the weird tentacles on it. The only time I've ever noticed. I've ever seen Transmog in my life. What were you gonna say?
I thought you actually had like a cool staff. That I was like, what caster staffs are there that do anything?
No, not a cool reference at all. A random Transmog.
Yeah.
Look at Evolving. They pulled Executioner for Ruth with this Javelin.
Yeah. So this is going to
And
be their
so-
second Tormented mob, and it is really nice to have those 2 dead already and a time advantage, because look at Pieces, right? Pieces is going with the faster and more aggressive strategy of skipping the first Tormented mob, but even with the faster strategy, they are behind here because Evolving, may have had a, in theory, slower Tormented strategy, but they actually found a way to be doing something efficient with both Tormented mobs, right? So even though they killed both of them were killed with a lot of useful stuff. In particular, the way they just brought that Incinerator into the massive pull with the first boss is inspired, and it's just a fantastic move.
Bless you. Oh, that was Jack sneezing. Jack is muted. I don't know why. I just instinctively said bless you to somebody who's muted. So now the spiteful are spawning for Evolving, and they're refreshing their Lantern buff over and over again. And it looks like this Elemental Shaman is really paying dividends on the side of Evolving. I love this comp. It's not a comp that you would have expected to see coming into the weekend in a dungeon like this, but the more we see this Aflock in Sanguine Depths, the more I really do like how they have been utilizing it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that both Af and Destro are good in a tournament, when that is the case, and when Shella is on your team, that is just a really, really good feeling, because I don't think there's anybody you would rather have on your MDI team, given, both of those specs are good. You're not going to have anybody learn them. Shella is already so strong at both of those specs. Now all we need to happen is to have a Demonology dungeon, because I think Shella, as good as he is at Af and Destro, Demonology is the one that I've seen be his true passion.
Is that Curse of Weakness that he has applied? And is that Curse of Tongues that he's applying to mobs?
Just helping out, casting a couple of curses.
Dude, he's helping out the boys. He's got to put some curses up.
My suspicion is he needs to use a couple globals to not rip threat, right? Look at the damage meter right now. Maybe he knows he can't do too much damage for the first 5 or 6 seconds, so he's just like, all right, I'll cast some curses. I'll help out. Don't worry, I got you.
Yeah, don't mind if I do, big dog.
Yeah. Soon, all we gotta see is some Venthyr Warlock action, because Venthyr Warlock Covenant ability actually just applies a relevant curse to each mob it hits as well. Just AoE curse. Wow, so cool.
Is there a curse that's a damage gain?
Unfortunately, no. It applies tongues to the casters, and it applies weakness to auto attackers, along with damage. But it also does that.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, so Tarvald has been engaged by Evolving. They are grabbing some of these ghouls with with Tarvald. The ghouls are probably the most dangerous and not great mobs in most of Shadowlands dungeons. The count that they give relative to the damage that they deal to your tank is astonishingly scary. However, whenever you have a 10 stack of the Lantern like that from the side of Evolving, those ghouls are no match for our Elemental Shaman hero as he pops all of his damage off on them, gets his nice chain lightning, hitting 4 targets, overloading on top of those mobs, and they are just blowing up Tarvald right here.
Spamming those lightning bolts now. Wow, so awesome.
Lightning. Lightning bolt.
Shella, great use there of the Drain Soul, keeping himself alive through the heavy damage that boss chooses to deal to whoever it's castigating. And there we go, with the Paladin finishing in a cool second place on the meters on that boss pull. Ah, yes.
All right, so now is the third boss of the instance, Grand Proctor Barilia. I suspect that they're going to pull this with all of the trash in the room. Look at that, they're eyeballing it. They're walking back and they're looking back and forth. They've engaged it all with the trash. They need to make sure that they get some of the kicks on these oppressors. The Rack Soulcast, what were we going to say, Dretness?
This is one of the, look at that, there's that Sigil of Silence. This is one of those spots where Vengeance Demon Hunter just brings so much utility with the Sigil of Silence and the Sigil of Chains. That keeps these mobs under such a heavy amount of control. They're all nicely stacked up. You get all the Spitefuls in the same spot. There was a Sigil of Misery even to help stop the Spitefuls from reaching their targets. And of course, with a fully ranged comp, one of the big advantages is that when Spiteful spawns, you're like, whatever. I'm 40 yards away. What's it going to do to me? So both teams actually taking advantage of that by playing 3 ranged DPS each.
All right. Now, dude, Barilia has gotten absolutely chunked. It's like Zyro was talking about earlier on in the weekend. Warlock, especially Affliction, is so good if you're able to just get a bunch of trash mobs grouped on top of bosses and then just cleave your AoE from your Sow of the Seeds, from your Seed of Corruption onto the boss while doing effectively a boatload of damage to all of the mobs that are surrounding it. And you see Shelly there still over 20k DPS well into a minute into the fight.
Yeah, huge damage being dealt here. And a lot of that is dealt to the primary target as well. Warlock Affliction in particular does get quite a bit of priority damage. You know, you get all these soul shards from the other things you're hitting, and whether you decide to funnel that into Seeds or into Malefic Rapture, you do still deal a lot of that damage to the primary target. Not as much as the Elemental Shaman, though. The Elemental Shaman and the Frost Mage actually both also heavy funnel damage classes. So this comp is really good at single target while there's a lot of AoE around, right? You have the Shaman using that Earthquake, Earthshock, I believe, legendary. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let me check. Yeah, exactly. The Earthquake, Earthshock legendary. So again, a heavy incentive towards AoE while also dealing a lot of damage to one specific target in the AoE.
Yeah. Now you see Evolving there, grabbing all of that trash with General Call. You did see Alex immediately dropping his shield to give himself some breathing room. You're able to use the shield, like if you use it almost like first global that you engage General Call, you get effectively a free use of it before he ends up casting his AoE that you would otherwise have to shield. And so it is just a free use, and you would rather use it for mitigation on the tank. Alex is dropping pretty low, but he's able to use his trinket to get a fairly sizable shield, and now General Call has been re-engaged again. They will probably open the Lantern here in a moment, pull a bunch of cadets, get some spitefuls, and get a 10 stack, but that's not going to be until later because we've seen a lot of groups pull a substantial trash pack onto the boss with Ashen Hollow, with Bloodlust at the very end of the General Call wing, and so they need to save that Lantern and that 50% damage increase for that.
Yeah, here we go. That final little bit of the gauntlet is starting now. You can see they're already moving over towards that Lantern. It'll have to be their Frost Mage or their Holy Paladin who does open the Lantern. You can see Sigil of Misery here, used to keep those Acolytes under control until they're ready. Their tank, Alex, just jumping ahead, grabbing all of the mobs, and then running back there. And they're going to use Sigil of Silence to help group up all of these casters. Beautiful combination and overlap of all their abilities, opening the Lantern, and there we go. Everything coming together. It looks like not even needing the Ashen Hallow here. That red effect you see on the ground, that's just the Lantern being open, because I think that means Ashen Hallow will be available during the boss fight itself just to help nuke it that little bit, well actually that large bit faster, as Ashen Hallow does a tremendous amount of damage, yeah.
I'm interested to see how much damage the Elemental Shaman and the Affliction Warlock are going to be doing on that pull too. Yesterday, we did see... from Team Name, I keep forgetting their name. From Team Name, we saw them bust out that Affliction Warlock, and it looked really solid. Mikkel, not an Affliction main, is what I would say about that. It's not that he played it poorly, he's just not an AF main, whereas Shelly is the Warlock player's favorite Warlock player kind of situation, where all Warlocks watch him for advice.
All right, so it looks like they're just going to be pulling these mobs. Let's see how much they're doing here. It looks like they've imprisoned something, and you know when the boss dies in less than a minute, imprison effectively just deletes a mob from the dungeon, right? You don't get count from it, but it's just gone until the end of the dungeon as long as they can kill Call before that imprison is up. And here comes everything. Ashen Hallow, Bloodlust, every single cooldown known to man is here with 70,000 DPS crested by both the Affliction Warlock and the Elemental Shaman. Oh, and they're having a...
Oh no! Our mage.
Ooh. Okay, they do have a battle res. They still have another one left over after this as well. General
He
Call.
lost his 50% damage increase though,
Yeah.
which is the biggest thing.
Oh, this is rough. He might end up getting 5th place on the meter on this one, and that is not,
He deserves
the
it.
place you want to be. It's going to be
mage.
close. Yeah, you can see, oh my goodness, Alex is actually ramping here at the end of this fight as well. But actually, the crown on the damage meter on this pull is going to be going to that Elemental Shaman with the Affliction Warlock in a close second, and Holy Paladin in a solid 3rd place as well. Evolving are going to advance to our championship Sunday with a 2-0 victory over Pieces Donkeys in a commanding Sanguine Depths performance, sub 15 minutes. Woo! Holy moly.
Oh, that is excellent there. Evolving, true to their name, getting better and better each day. As they take that victory, they move on through the lower brackets and send Pieces Donkeys home. And on the side of Pieces Donkeys, you know, I hope they've been happy with how they've been doing. It looked like
If you can get them
having
all
a ton
amazing,
of
if
fun.
not, that's fine. I can
near
just
the
talk about
end,
them.
just running around, laughing and having fun with the pros. And at the end of the day, Si, that's what we want all these competitors to have.
Get it.
I think
Where's
there's a chance
Si?
he's still over in the replay
Oh,
booth. Yeah.
sorry.
He might.
No, I am here. Sorry, what did you say, Jack? Sorry, I just